This workout is for mobility, hanging, handstands, and flow. It's one of 2 workouts I do a day, and I've started filming all my workouts this year and sharing with YouTube because I had a couple of really bad injuries when I started calisthenics in my mid to late 30s. I had slap tears in both shoulders, I've had golfer's elbow and tennis elbow, torn meniscus, and I deal with spondylolisthesis in L4 and L5. And I just couldn't find any resources like what I'm sharing here. All you see is really the end results. There's no one really showing the journey. So my mission really is to create videos like this so that you guys don't have to make the same mistakes I did. Enjoy. So I'm starting with a little bit of a squat hip opener. This is a really good way to start any workout really. The squat is a really important move to be able to develop, and if you can't do what I'm doing here, then you can, by putting something under your heels, so you elevate the heels, it'll make it a lot easier. Okay? Bear in mind that everything that you watch me do here, I've been training for a long time. So, you know, for beginners and people that are new to this stuff, of course, there's easier versions of everything that I'm doing that you would do. And that's where programming and progressive overload comes in. I think a big mistake that people make when they watch YouTube videos, most YouTubers in the fitness space are pretty good. They're better than what the average person is. And trying to copy what they do is the mistake that I made. And that's why I had so many bad injuries when I started my calisthenics journey. And I think YouTube is a great way. You can get answers for compartmentalized issues. You know, I've made a lot of videos on that solve a specific problem, which can be useful. But for the whole picture, for the whole, you know, understanding of how to put a complete program together, you'll never get that from YouTube. And I think it's a really smart thing for you guys that are watching to, if you watch YouTube for motivation, eventually you want to find somebody that you're going to work with and follow their programs and do what they've, you know, what they recommend. I worked with Roy Goldschmidt for 2 years to help me advance. I worked with a guy named Joachim Hilderson for flexibility work, and all of that has really contributed to what I can do now. If I hadn't worked with those coaches, I wouldn't be able to do what I can do now. So just be aware of that when you're watching your YouTube stuff for motivation and looking for tips. You're never going to see the full picture from watching the videos. Eventually, you know, you really want to make a commitment and work with someone. So this is all what we call mobility work, because I'm not actually holding a stretch. This is all just moving through different positions and warming the body up. Okay, I'm going to do my wrist mobility once I'm outside. Okay, let's get into some hanging. Hanging is a highly underrated exercise. It really is. But you don't feel the full benefits of hanging until you start really adding some volume into your training. So, you know, doing between 1 to 7 minutes of hanging a day is where you start to really see the benefits. So like, you know, minimum volume that I would recommend is to try and get 1 minute of a passive hang a day, just like what I'm doing right here. Now, 1 minute of a passive hang for a lot of people is just too much when they start. So you could break it down into 6 times 10 seconds or 4 times 15 seconds or whatever works for you. And if you can't do it at all, then you would deload by, you know, hanging with your feet on something. So I'd get a box under my feet so that my feet are taking half of my body weight. Now this is a stretch for my glutes. And first I'm doing an end range contraction. So when you pair an end range contraction with a loaded stretch, it's a really good way to develop great flexibility, because the end range contraction it does a lot, but basically by producing strength at end range, it makes it very hard for your body, for the nervous system, to trigger any of the sensory neurons that would restrict flexibility in the opposing muscles. So it basically shuts down the body's ability to contract the opposing muscles, and that has a short lasting effect. So when I go into this loaded stretch now, I get a carryover from that, which allows me to access a greater range of motion. And then by doing a loaded stretch like this, so I'm loading up my glutes with my body weight, going through some eccentric contractions, it really helps to increase flexibility. Now we go into some single arm hang transitions, and these are way harder. This is definitely not a beginner exercise, and it took me a few years of work to get to this point. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong, not just with hanging, but with calisthenics and body weight training in general, is the time that it takes for adaptation to occur is greater than what most people understand. And I did a lot of hanging every day to prepare myself for these kinds of exercises, and it's through that consistent effort, through that repetition, that your body adapts, becomes stronger, and becomes capable of doing movements like this. And I think the big problem that people have is that they just have unrealistic expectations of how long it takes to achieve that higher level of strength and flexibility, like what is required for single arm hang transitions. I know that's what it was like for me. When I was looking for answers on YouTube, there was just nothing really saying how long it takes to get there. People just do these videos that are really well made and that just show you the perfect execution of these exercises that you want to do, and so you just go and try it, and just didn't work for me, that approach. And I don't think it'll work for you either. It's about understanding which exercise is best for you at your level and working on that exercise until you achieve a certain level of competency, and then moving on to the next one. And for that, you really need somebody who's been on that journey before you, looking at what you do, to be able to let you know when it's time to progress and when it's time to adjust, and so on and so forth. All right, this is the final set of hanging for me today. By far the hardest. Woo. So this is all over flexibility, but for me, it's mostly about the shoulders. Coming back from a slap tear, or slap tears in both shoulders, shoulder flexion like this has been very challenging. And so the real work for me is in the shoulders here. God. Oh man. So this one's for shoulder external rotation, and I'm doing a contract relax method. Very hard for me. Shoulder flexibility is a big thing to have to unlock. Again, after slap tears, you know, a lot of people develop frozen shoulders, and after a slap tear, you really lose a lot of flexibility. Oh, and you've got to really work to get it back. And you've just got to accept. Oh, God. Just got to accept your position and work with it. People give up too easy. They don't realize people overestimate what they can achieve in 3 months and underestimate what they can achieve in 3 years. And you know, time goes on, there's nothing you can do about it. But what you do with your time is up to you. And so you can choose to do nothing and allow your body to deteriorate more and more and become more and more depressed from that process. Or you can choose to do what I'm doing and do something about it every day. And it might take a while, but you get better every day. And the 3 years that's going to pass, from now until 2027, there's nothing you can do about it. It's coming. However, you can fight it as much as you want, and that time is still going to pass. But in 3 years, you'll either be the person you want to be because you made the choices that matter now and you did what was required, or you'll be the person you don't want to be. Up to you. This one's for hip internal rotation. It's very tough for me, this one. Got to work really hard at end range for end range strength to make any difference. I go through the same battles that everybody else goes through. I'd much rather be watching Netflix or playing video games or watching movies than doing all this every day. It's hard. It's tough work. But the way that I determine what I do with my time is I don't think about what do I want to do now that's going to make me feel good. I think about who do I want to be in 3 years and 10 years time. And when I think forward as to who I want to be in 10 years time, and I picture that life, and then you picture the alternate life where if you didn't do this work, you didn't do any of it, and where would you be in 10 years time? and sit in those two places and see which one brings you pure joy to think about, and see which one scares the absolute hell out of you, and then act in a way that takes you towards the life that brings you joy. Because in my experience, when you go the other way and you get there, you get to that 10-year period, it is a horrible feeling. And I've been there. That's where I was when I was 30. And that's why I joined the army and why I completely changed the direction of my life. So, you know, you just got to do that work. You've got to do the work that's going to make you the person you want to be. Oh man, come on. Oh man. All right, to finish up my mobility work and end range strength, it's just some wrist conditioning and hand conditioning for my handstands. This is another one that took me years of practice to be able to do. And I'm not having a very strong day today. I only got 3 reps. For handstands and for the flow work that I'm about to do, there is so much load that goes on the wrists in a way that they're just not intended to do. And when I started doing handstands in my mid-30s, all of us actually, my brother as well, who's 2 years younger than me, all of us that started doing this stuff in our mid to late 30s, we all got wrist injuries within the first few months. You get told by these expert hand balancers that, you know, you're meant to do handstands 6 days a week, and you know, you got to do 5 sets and you got to hold it for so long, and your wrists just aren't able to do that when you start. The volume's too much. So I got really bad. My brother and I both got really bad wrist injuries. We couldn't put any weight on our hands for about 3 to 6 months. And so I've had to rebuild from that. And now my wrists are no longer a problem, which is good, but just be careful when you start with hand balancing, and make sure you do this stuff. Make sure you strengthen your wrist. I do this every day, this wrist conditioning. Oh. Woo. All right. So now, just so that I'm just recording my reps. I'm using my app here to record my reps. So just so that I get the most out of my workout and for the time that I'm going to be here for, what I do is when I move from all my mobility and wrist prep work, I go straight into my first set of handstands. And for today, I'm doing 3 handstands, but my first set is always face to wall, just as a warm-up. I'll just do 30 seconds as a warm-up for my 3 handstands. Man, handstands are so much harder than what I think a lot of people make out, or at least, let's talk about my personal experience. They're so much harder than what I thought they'd be. But that said, like everybody, all the coaches that I've worked with, they talk about that to get a really good handstand, you need to train 6 days a week. That seems to be consistent with everybody that I've worked with. And my experience was that when I tried to do that, I got injured. And so I had to work on strengthening my body and turning these weak links into strength. So, slap tears in both shoulders, really severe wrist sprains and sprains in the carpals, the little bones in your hand there. Tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, although those weren't too severe for a handstand. But, it all just meant that I couldn't just commit hard to handstand training. And this will be the first year where, touch wood, where I can do that because my body's in a good place now. I've gone through this rebuilding process and this almost like starting from ground zero for calisthenics work to prepare my body to be able to do, to be able to handle the volume and the load on your arms, on your joints. And I definitely wasn't prepared for that. I definitely didn't have anybody tell me, look, if you're going to do handstands this many days a week, you're going to need to really strengthen your shoulders and your wrists first before you commit to 6 days a week of doing this kind of volume. And I wish I was told that. I like doing some passive stretching for my pancake and splits during the handstand, because there are a couple of stretches that they don't, you're not using your arms at all, so my upper body's relaxing. I can just use the time to just relax into a pancake stretch. These little 30-second holds, they really add up and help to improve flexibility. So even when I'm holding here, I'm doing end range contractions. So I'm contracting my glutes now, contracting my quadriceps, but doing these little multiple sets of 30-second holds, it really helps with your flexibility. It really helps to increase it. And when you add in those end range contractions, that's really teaching the nervous system that this is a controllable range, this is a safe range, which is what flexibility is all about. It's about reteaching the nervous system. This is one of the best ways to get flexible, is just doing your stretching between sets. So this is how we do it in the unified movement system. If you're doing strength training for your upper body, you're doing stretching for your lower body in between sets. And it's just so effective because it just makes use of the time so much better than just sitting there, doing nothing. And everybody's different, so of course a lot of you watching this won't be able to stretch as far as I can. So it's all just about understanding what your level is, what you can achieve, what you can work with. And we use different flexibility methods in different workouts. But something like a handstand workout like this, I don't like to do anything that's too fatiguing, so I just do a static stretch with a few end range contractions. It doesn't cook me for my next set, but it adds a lot of volume, where I normally wouldn't get it. So it's really helping me to achieve new levels of flexibility and definitely to maintain what I've already got. So much repetition work with flow and calisthenics and stuff. You just have to do the same thing over and over and over again to get better and overcome those weak links in your body, learn the movement patterns. It's a nice day for training today. It's not too hot, but it is humid because it's wet. All the moisture's coming off the ground in late summer. Whew. That felt better than the last few times I've done this movement. That's good. It's all about the way that you transition your weight from one hand to the other. I think I'm going to have to start strapping my wrist for a little while in these flow workouts because it's this niggling little 1 out of 10 pain. It just isn't going away. And this is what I had to do last time. I had to strap my wrist for a few months until it got better. When you strap your wrist and you squeeze the radius and ulnar together, it deloads the pressure on the hand, on the wrist in there. Let's see. I'm heating up now. Starting to sweat. Whew.